The Center, with your host, DC Radical One.
Greetings, Black family, and welcome to On the Wake Up Radio. I am your host, DC Radical One, and you have entered the center. Shout out to our wonderful producer, Cindy Ashby. You can check us out on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio at On the Wake Up Radio. Even more importantly than all that, you can check us out at otwtube.com. That's otwtube.com. And I believe you can check us out at onthewakeupradio.com as well. BB40 and Straight Black Pride to Brother Elijah, and BB40 and Straight Black Pride to Sister Fonessa. Thank you all for coming out, listening, tuning in on short notice. As y'all know, I don't do a lot, make a lot of appearances on YouTube lately, largely because YouTube does not like me. Um, oh, you say you can't? Hold on. 'Cause I'm using the same mic, but I'm using a different computer. So give me a second. Let's see. Can you hear me better now, sister? Let me know. Um, because I actually didn't test it because I had to change computers at the last, in essence, at the last minute. I had to change. The other computer was acting up. It was running slow, and I didn't. So I just grabbed this one, which is my live streaming computer. I got it to live stream the events, and you know, that's what it's for. That's kind of what it's built for. That's what I use it for. Hopefully, the mic and everything is working well. Um, you say the last broadcast was low as well. Okay, I will. I have to check. I have to check on that in between. I have to check on that before I do another live stream because I'm not sure what the issue is. Although the only difference literally is the computers that I'm using. I'm using the same mic. I'm using the same setup. Everything else is the same, but I'm using a different computer from the computer I normally use. BB40 and Straight Black Pride to Unique One Express. So, with that being said, today is Dr. Chancellor Williams' birthday, and most of you all, most of you all on the email list, so you probably got the email. This past Sunday, we went out to Dr. Chancellor Williams' gravesite, which is in Suitland, Maryland. He was buried in Suitland, Maryland, and we had a commemoration ceremony at that time. Uh, Peace and Black Power to Brother Patrick and BB40. Brother, you got ripped off. Uh, Brother, you got ripped off. It looks like we got a Russian bot in the building. Um, if you can take care of that, because I'm not sure what's going on there. But as I was saying, and I'm not going to be long. I'm probably going to be an hour because unfortunately, I got places to go. But this past Sunday, we went out to the gravesite and we had a ceremony, small ceremony for Dr. Chancellor Williams. And myself, Brother Jeannie, we spoke, made some remarks. I read some passages from the book. And something happened there to me spiritually that it was a reminder. So I'm going to apologize to you all shortly. It was a reminder to me that the work has to be done regardless of whom or what. Now, as you all know who've been following me for a while and everything, you know that Dr. Chancellor Williams Day, every year, we have the ceremony at the gravesite. and I do a lecture called Africans versus Everybody, which was developed. The inspiration for that lecture was the book, The Destruction of Black Civilization. After rereading the book and looking at our position in the world and looking at our relationships um, with the people of the world, that's when I decided to develop the lecture, because I realized that our people did not have a historical understanding of our relationships with the other people on earth. And to answer your question, Unique One Express, we did record it. We did not stream it. So we did record it. I haven't even looked at the footage. And the only reason I haven't, we didn't know uh, how long we didn't, it wasn't very, it wasn't very formal. So we recorded it to have it, but we didn't know whether or not we would put it out until we saw it. And so that's why it hasn't been put out. It may be just shown to the members of the chapter. It may, I may, um, I may add it to something else. I'm not sure, but you know, for you, when I see you, I can, I can show it to you. I just had to, I couldn't even load it up on this computer because this computer I would have hacked to. Anyway, it would have been a longer process to actually load it up and even do it for this show here. And I knew I wasn't going to be on long, so that's why I didn't go through that process. But as I was saying, um, normally every year I do we have the ceremony, and I do a lecture sometime during that week of his birthday. And I think I've done that 3 times. This would have been the fourth, but I didn't because a lot of different circumstances were going on. The whole jab thing, this whole, this Omicron thing, us really focusing all our stuff on fighting the mandate rally, which was right around the same time. And so I didn't do the lecture. Uh, I mean, it was some venue issues. I mean, it's just one of those things where lots of things added up to the point where it's like, oh, maybe we don't need to do the lecture. People seeing the lecture, it's not going to be a lot new added to it. Okay, yes, okay, I understand. That's understood. I figured that. Unique One Express. Um, but what I realized is the reason that we do these things is because our people, regardless of how conscious they are, how African they are, how African centered they are, or if they're just a regular Negro, one, our people need to be reminded constantly because we're bombarded constantly with misinformation and psychological warfare. And so our people need to be reminded of our place in the world, where we are, what we're facing, and from who. And so me not doing that lecture now, I realize I'm like, one, it's uh, uh, an homage, a testament to the work of Dr. Chancellor Williams. So it should be done just because of that. It's done in his spirit. And two, like I said before, our people really, really are struggling with our identity. We're really struggling with our understanding of what's going on in the world. And we're really facing a crisis situation with, what our knowledge of self and our ability to survive. Because once you lose your identity, you're easy prey for predators. And we're in a world, before people used to say we're in a world of competition between the races, if you will, competition between nation states and so forth. So the nation state model of European dominion is coming to a close, being replaced by a global small hat hegemony. And so the nation state model is being phased out in order to put in what we know as, or what was told to us as, the New World Order in, what was that, 89 or 91, or whenever that was that Bush, uh, Daddy Bush said it. What Klaus Schwab is calling the Great Reset, which is a resetting of the world, um, again. Now, the Great Reset is just an update on the previous plan, but this is all again an advancement of the small head plan set out in literature that you all should be familiar with, the protocols. I think I can get away with saying the protocols without this being deleted by the time that I close my computer and go make a sandwich. you know and so what I realized is that the work has to be done. Our people have to, right? Yeah, Operation Dark Winter. Now we got 1,000,001 names. That's Dark Winter is the phase that's being implemented now. It's interesting too, veering off topic a little bit. I just, when I heard Biden say that there not going to be any new lockdowns and blah blah blah, I need to read the newspaper to see exactly what he said, because I think that might be a thing of him saying there won't be any new lockdowns for those of you who are jabbed, but the unjabbed, well, that's a whole nother matter. In fact, I think I saw an announcement where some New York City type of restrictions on the movement and the activities of the unjabbed is occurring here in DC, and I had to check into that. Um, I had to check into that. Maybe I'll make a video about that. Maybe I can get away with a video about that without getting deleted. I'm not sure. But back to the matter at hand, it's important, um, as one who has studied our people's history, that for African people, history is living. Time isn't a linear. Our understanding of time isn't really linear in the way that Europeans is. Past, present, and future are interconnected. Ancestors and our descendants are interconnected. We are ancestors of the unborn and descendants of those who have passed on at the same time, whether we know it or not. In a very simple way of understanding it, you're your mother's child and your child's parent, very simply. And so the ancestral story is most important because that keeps the connection between past, present, future, child and parent, grandparent, ancestor, descendant. And so I feel like I, in a very real way, kind of dropped the ball and kind of failed the people, including those who would have come out to see the event, those who would have paid to watch it online, and those who would have never heard about it, and those who would have ignored it, because there's a chance that they would have seen it or heard about it from someone else. And so, with that, I apologize to you, the people, for not doing the duty that I was given back when I was a teenager studying under the Nation of Islam. which their teachers say that the duty of the civilized man is to teach civilization, roughly translated um, into a more modern context. The duty of those who know is to teach those who do not, and to remind those who know to continue the fight, to continue the struggle. As I always quote Dr. Khaled, we must indeed resist in order to exist. So I just wanted to do that and get that out the way because it was weighing on my spirit. And what I realized is that as we were out at the gravesite and we began the ceremony, and there were very few people there at the beginning, and over there is he's buried on the bottom end of a hill next to a road where the hill goes further down, and then um, where some more graves extend, a few more graves extend down the other side of the road. And it's always windy there. And of course, it's wintertime. It's always, it's, it's always December 22nd. His birthday is always today. Um, a lot of times it's overcast. And the first time we did it at night. Um, or it was a Friday, and we went out Friday night and did it then. But with all that being said, is that as we gathered and as we, Brother Jeannie opened, and as I read passages from the book, which I'm going to do today and discuss, the spirit of Dr. Chancellor Williams really spoke and resonated to us, and it was a reminder um, of the danger that we're in. And this is something that he wrote about 50 years ago. You know, again, before I was born, he was researching this stuff way before that. And so I just want to get in briefly read a basic biography. I just learned that there's a new feature with StreamYard, which allows you to load up presentations like from PowerPoint. So I might mess around with that. That might be something I do a little bit in the future. It actually would have been perfect for now. But for those who don't know, Dr. Chancellor Williams was born December 22nd, 1893. And he transitioned to the ancestral realm December 7th, 1992. And one of my elders, Dr. El Senzakulu Zulu, who founded Ujamaa Shule here in Washington, D.C. And those of you who have Facebook, um, you got ripped off. Hey, this is a feature they just opened up like 3 weeks ago. You know, I just got the message. Anyway, Dr. El Senzakulu Zulu started Ujamaa Shule, which is the oldest continuous running African centered school in the country. And you can look up Baba Zulu on Facebook. He's actually asking for donations for his school. Currently, I believe that the DC government wants to move him out and take that land from him. So if you have any extra coins, hey, I understand everything's going on right now, but I just asked you to check him out. Baba Zulu took care of Dr. Chancellor Williams in his last few years and wrote the foreword to his second book, in addition of his second book, the Rebirth of African Civilization. So that's a little bit of interesting history there. Dr. Chancellor Williams was born in Bennettsville, South Carolina, and of course transitioned here in Washington D.C. And he's a sociologist and historian. And for those who know, he did 16 years of field research. You say drop the link in the description. For the school, okay, yeah, if I can find it, because I don't even have Facebook, but the information was passed on to me from someone else, so I'll do that. But Dr. Williams did 16 years of field research to come up with destruction of black civilization, and traveled around the world and extensively through Africa. Getting reading books and traveling to Europe and going to museums and going out to like the outback, the bush of Africa, and getting the history, the oral tradition, the oral history directly from different people. And the reason this book is so important and is so um, timeless is that this book answers the question that every person who gets knowledge, logic, or is introduced to knowledge, logically asks. It's the answer to the logical question, right? The question, like someone will come up to you and say, for me it was high school, and they like, hey, what you know about this and that, and they start dropping some stuff on you and talk about black people used to have these great civilizations and we the first people, and blah blah blah. Or you go on, say you go on YouTube and you see somebody, or you go on, you stumble past somebody's Instagram like mine, and you see this stuff. You're like, man, what is this dude talking about? And then your logical question is, well, if that's the case, then what happened, right? That's the logical question. If you tell me, yeah, what I'm saying, I'm a Negro, and I look at the condition of our people, we're not doing anything. Okay, you know, some individual people are making some money. Okay, whoop de doo. Just in the grand scheme of things. Half the time, these people end up broke by the time they my age anyway. They get the money when they 20, 45, they broke, you know. So you look at stuff and you say, okay, if that's true, what happened? This book, Destruction of Black Civilization, answers the question, what happened? And it answers it in a way that's so comprehensive that it leaves very little room for debate. Now, black people, we can debate anything in regards to black progress or something that's beneficial for black people. We can, what I'm saying? It becomes a parliamentary discussion when we don't want to simply accept the truth about us in a positive manner. You all of a sudden everybody's a scholar. You know, everybody has some issue. Everybody wants to debate it. Everybody wants to bring up something. I mean, we know how it is. We've been there, right? So, um, looking at Dr. Chancellor Williams' life, he um, he came here to D.C. from South Carolina and attended Howard University. And Howard University is a very interesting institution because a lot of very brilliant black people, a lot of very relevant black people have gone to Howard University, and you know they produce some good people, and they've also produced some Negroes. You know what I'm saying? But after attending Howard University, and every time I read this, that it's interesting, and I put it in my lectures, and it the lecture it's on the other computer. That information which I need right now, it will make it easier, and I can put it up on the screen. Oh, brother, you got ripped off and laughing at me. Um, he studied at Oxford in 1953, and then began doing his field research on African history in Ghana, at Ghana University College. And I just found it very profound because it shows that he was literally willing to go to the ends of the earth to find our history and to find our culture and our tradition and our story. And I believe a lot of this was on the dime of the European. He was working for different institutions, and realistically, even when you're working for HBCU, you're kind of still working for Urugu because Urugu pays the HBCU money, which is why we have, you know, why we have the type of Negrodom and homophilia that's going on at the HBCUs. I can't speak for all of them, but Howard, man, it ain't what it used to be. For those who are unaware, Howard University used to be has a really strong, for lack of a better word, radical tradition. Uh, uh, Stokely Carmichael, aka Kwame Ture, he went to Howard. I believe he was involved in some protests on the campus, if I'm not mistaken, about making some changes to the what the institution was teaching. Uh, you know, regardless of what you think about him, brother Malik Zulu Shabazz was up there doing some things. He was doing some good work at the time because he's slightly older than me, so I remember when he was at Howard. He often brought Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad there, and y'all know how I feel about Dr. Khalid Muhammad. And I'll let y'all know now. Hopefully I get the flyer. Ooh, hopefully I get the flyer this week. What I forgot how close we are to the unholy days. Uh, Dr. Khalid Day will be January. We're gonna do it on Martin Luther King Day, so it's gonna be January 17th, Monday at 6 p.m. And I'll give you the further details when I get them. So be on the lookout for that. We're not going to miss Dr. Collins Day. Last time I couldn't do Dr. Collins Day because of technical issues. We're going to have that squared away. I'm going to do that lecture. You know, I've been waiting a year. Um, the world almost came to an end the last time I was going to do that lecture. So I'm going to do it again. Come hook or crook, hella high water. But with getting back to Dr. Chancellor Williams, the fact that someone will take nearly 2 decades of their life to and brother Patrick, yeah, that's correct. European general, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and I need to research to see if he was a hat because I really don't know. But it's always, a lot of times when you see stuff in history and you think it's just a regular euro, it's usually a hat hiding underneath that euro costume. But for someone to take 16 years of their life to study our story and then begin to put it down, and we got really a small portion of what Dr. Williams intended. This was supposed to be a multi-volume set, but as he got on in age, he started to have trouble with his eyesight and was unable to, and I believe finances may have become an issue as well. He was unable to produce as extensive a volume as his research had allowed. So, what we got here and the edition that I have now is about 364 pages of text. But what we were supposed to have was supposed to be much larger. And so, uh, yeah, brother Patrick, several other HBCUs are named after you, indeed. And I'm a little short on light. Give me a second here. Gotta make some adjustments. But what I want to do is really read the same passages that I read on Sunday for you all who weren't there. And again, this is not DC Radical One speaking. This is from the text of what Brother Genie, he was the first one I heard coin this phrase, called our Black Bible, you know. And this is chapter 10, which he marks with a Roman numeral X, which I found interesting. And it says white devils from the west. Now, if you have your good book, you can open it out and you can follow along with me. I'm going to start at the right at the beginning of the chapter. And it says, before the 16th century, most Africans on the continent had never seen a real white face. Since in many societies all devils and other evil spirits were white, read that again. It says, since in many societies all devils and evil spirits were white, the ritual to ward these off was always led by chanting dancers whose faces and bodies were hideously painted with white chalk. That there were, in fact, white humans, living quote unquote white devils, was unbelievable. Probably few reports are better known than those of first contact, where the boldest of the unbelievers would venture to rub the skin of whites to see if their paint would come off. Over 1,000 years had passed since Assyrians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Turks had taken over Egypt, and Arabs now also ruled the eastern Sudan. Arab Hebrew rule was steadfast and isolated Abyssinia, while the Arabs along the east coast, operating from their Zanzibar stronghold, had not themselves ventured far into the interior. Their Afro Arab agents generally spearheaded slave hunting operations. Let me stop right there. Says who? Their Afro Arab, meaning mixed, African and Arab, agents generally spearheaded slave hunting operations. And this is in East Africa. So he's talking about part of the Arab slave trade, right? Now, when I read that, right, what I realized, and man, time is going fast, is that the belief in Western Africa in evil spirits being white or devils being white is actually part of the ancestral genetic memory of Black people having dealt with Europeans, as Dr. Chancellor Williams said, Romans, Greeks, and so on, from the Kemetic period, and that those descendants who fled the onslaught in Kemet are those people who fled not only south back into the southern interior, but also fled west. And this is a thing that many scholars point out, that other people, people like to argue and debate and whatnot. And like, because what do people always say? Oh man, you from West Africa. You're not descended from people, Kim. But again, Black people in Africa have migrated across the continent for different reasons, but the main reason is usually an invasion. Get trying to get away, in essence, trying to get away from Euros. And so it is my understanding, and it was like when I read it, it was obvious that our previous experiences with Europeans had already been encoded in us, but it was manifested as folklore and part of our traditions. And so the concept of evil or bad spirits right, became intermingled with whiteness based on our previous experiences of going to war with whites for hundreds of years, thousands of years before that, right? We always talk about our problems with Europeans, various tribes, right? It doesn't even matter. Greeks, Romans, Persians, Portuguese, Spaniards, you know what I'm saying? The list goes on and on. Italians, Germans, you name it. English, Irish, all of them. Our experiences with them, going back to Assyrians, Babylonians, whatever, goes back thousands of years. But here in the West, we're taught that our problem with them started with slavery. And that's where we get confused. And brother, you got ripped off says Dr. Virginia Jennings spoke on memories being encoded in DNA at the 2019 convention. Right, exactly. It becomes part of your ancestral genetic memory and it gets manifest in different ways. And you don't realize, unless you study it, what you're looking at. That's why, that's why with the Nation of Islam encoded in their religion, oh, the white man's the devil, it resonated with people. But what I realized is if you look at some of the people back in the 1880s and 1870s, some of those freedom fighters, they were calling whites devils then. Like Elijah Muhammad, you know what I'm saying? That wasn't new. Somebody codifying it into a religious context. That was new. But the idea had actually been imprinted into our minds going all the way back to before slavery started. The interesting thing is that when you forget the history behind the folklore, you can fall victim to the same enemy because what the children will begin to think of as mythology, right? The actuality of it isn't understood until it's too late. And so that's what's profound about this part, this chapter, is the reality of our experiences had been forgotten, and thus we fell victim, and they were repeated, except in a much in a worse way. Something much worse happened than even then, where we faced invasion and enslavement. But there, where we're talking about a couple of nations that were at least able to hold the line. Kemet, Nubia, that northeastern uh, uh, corridor of Africa was able to hold the line and absorb the blow to prevent the complete penetration of Africa and the destruction of Africa 4,000 years ago, right? That protected the interior of Africa, that protected Southern Africa, that protected Western Africa. Then, but then you have the reoccurring thing where the onslaught continues, and then when the Arabs come, then they come and they take over Northern Africa, and the uh, Arab slave trade is something we don't talk about, but something that lasted longer than the European slave trade or the transatlantic slave trade. And that's an aspect of the Maafa, the Great Disaster, that we don't talk about. It is as or more devastating than the European slave trade, other than the fact that the European slave trade led to the fall of Africa and the whole colonization process that we have not fully gotten out from under as we face onslaught from the Chinese at the same time, right? But one of the things, what is the main uh, um, effect that is hurting us from this onslaught? The main effect, the main problem, the main issue that these attacks have caused is a fracture in the psyche and the ripping apart of the identity of African people, so that you can take an African person and take them to China, or take them to America, or take them to Brazil, or take them to Arabia, and then they speak a different language, and they learn a different culture, and they take on a different name, and suddenly they don't see their cousin, their brother, as family, because he's an Arab and I'm an American, and you're Brazilian, and hell, you're Chinese, even though I never seen no black Chinese before, right? You see what I'm saying? And meanwhile, Europeans, at least when it comes to opposition to us, they're all Europeans, right? America will always talk about that they're not part of Europe and that they're better than Europe and this, that, and the third. And they even had a war with Britain, but Britain is the number one ally now, right? Because they have their memory intact, they have their identity intact. They remember who they are and where they came from. As Bob Barugi says, America is New Europe. And at this point now, America is, as Brother Genie says, Western Israel. That's another discussion for another day. But speaking of Western Israel, if we really look at the foundation of what we call white supremacy, the building blocks of that are small hat hegemony and the small hat philosophy of superiority based on the chosen people narrative. Brother, you got ripped off says I highly recommend watching the New Black Mind videos on TAP Video YouTube channel. Dr. Ivan Van Sertima destroys these misconceptions. Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, that's another brilliant scholar. And so, because our identities, other identities, have been imposed on us, it makes a book like The Destruction of Black Civilization even more paramount now than when it was written, because once you see what happened, then you can begin to course correct. And then you can see, oh, I'm looking at this one way, and my enemy is looking at it another way. And because he's looking at it the way he's looking at it, that's why he's winning and I'm losing. What's interesting in this time frame is that, from my perspective, we don't realize we're losing as black people. I don't I don't know what life people are living and where they're living and what's going on where they can't see black people are losing. I It's possible that I think that people don't know we're losing. And what's actually happening is that they feel like we've lost and they've already given up. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe they've like, we've lost, right? You know what I'm saying? If it's a football game, right? And if I'm playing on the team and we're down 24-3 in the fourth quarter, to me, we're losing. But there's time on the clock. The fourth quarter just started. We can win the game if we stop fumbling the ball, committing penalties and turnovers. But if you're in the stands and the team hasn't been winning in a long time, you're walking out the door. And it seems like most of our people are content to be in the stands and walk out the door and accept the loss while the game is still going on. But I'm on the field and I'm not accepting the loss because this is the championship. Ain't no more games after this. You lose here, it's all over. Because the European has no need for us beyond entertainment. They're building robots to eliminate the need for labor from their own people. Brother, you got ripped off, said our people not even in the stadium. Yeah, brother. Yeah. So, getting back to the book, and I didn't mean to go on a tirade, but you know, I just felt that this had to be said and had to be put into the atmosphere. And I don't know how many people see it. I don't know if they take it down by the time, like I said, I turn the mic off, but it'll be recorded. It's being recorded. But there's another part. But I feel like it's the most profound statement in the book. It's my favorite part, and if you go to my Twitter page, this is actually the pinned quote to my Twitter page. By the way, I do have the banner going down the bottom. You know, you can follow me on Instagram at DC.radical1, on Twitter at DC_radical_ONE, and at OTW2 at DC Radical1. And the Cash App, if you feel like making a donation, it's $ DC Radical1. And of course, this is the YouTube, capital D, small c, Radical1. The email is dc.radical_1 at protonmail.com. Now that we covered that, chapter 13, second paragraph. And he says, "Yet I did just that when I wrote that the whites are the implacable foe, the traditional and everlasting enemy of the blacks. The compelling reason, my bad, I lost my page. So, y'all can still hear me, right? The compelling reason for publicly putting this declaration in its historical context is clear. The necessary re education of blacks and a possible solution of racial crises can begin, strangely enough, only when blacks fully realize this central fact in their lives. The white man is their bitter enemy. For this is not the ranting of wild-eyed militancy, but the calm and unmistakable verdict of several thousand years of documented history." Understand, when he says the white man, he's talking about Persians, Greeks, Arabs, Babylonians, Assyrians, Hebrews, or so-called Jews, English, Spaniards, Portuguese, Italians, Russians, Germans, Austrians, Czechs. You understand what I'm saying? And also he's Asians, because he puts Asians, basically Europe, as Western Asia, which is what it is. This is what it is. So he includes Chinese, Japanese. They're included. And that's why when I did the lecture as Africa versus everybody, or Africans versus everybody. Part and then that was, that became part one. Y'all finally get to see part two. Um, Less than a month. That quote I found so profound because he says that necessary re-education can only you can't even get started until you accept this fact. That's the starting point. A person doesn't accept that, okay, man, yeah, can't do nothing for you. Can't even talk. You can't even begin. You can't even begin the educational process of the understanding of your relationship with the peoples of the world until you accept this reality. That's how deep it is. Greetings to Brother Crow. And so there's another part that that's after that, page 311. And he talks about the Negro. And, well, hold on. Before that, he says, for all these shouting emotional outbursts by blacks are in and of themselves an indication of weakness because they becloud the mind and prevent the calm and clear thinking that is absolutely required for planning if the race is to be saved from final destruction. Destruction is not too strong a term here. Only fools will be unable to see that the race is again being hemmed in, surrounded by its enemies, and cannot survive forever under what might be called a state of gradual siege. Those Negroes who are still pleading with the whites for brotherhood through integration are so deaf and blind that they are unable to get the white enemy's reply to these frantic pleas for acceptance through integration. The reply of whites was so loud and clear that it was heard around the world. When segregation in schools and residence was outlawed throughout the United States, whites fled from the cities to the suburbs just as though a plague had struck or some deadly disease was spreading. The blacks were left alone in the cities now called ghettos or the inner cities. This was rejection, total, complete. The black youth of America got the message from whites first, and they got it quickly. They formed new battle lines. Several millions of quote unquote middle class Negroes and their leaders have not received the message yet and probably never will. For them, the white man is the ship and all else is the sea. They themselves do not feel competent to develop the higher standards of life in all black communities created by the very whites they so much worship. For them, there can be no quality education unless by hook or crook, some white faces, any kind of white faces, are in the classroom. Their main drive is to force the fleeing whites to accept them, or, quote unquote, please, O you superior people, allow us to bus some of our children to your schools. As they achieve these hollow victories on the integration front, they add a new cry: give us racial balance. These Negroes have neither the ethnic pride nor the self respect that is characteristic of American Indians, Japanese, and Chinese, and they seem utterly insensitive to being openly rejected by the whites and battle on with the fantastic idea that they can force the whites to accept them socially. Brothers and sisters, this was written 50 years ago. Here we are, in a time where we've gone from coming into the cities and the Europeans leaving the cities. Now, in many cities, including where I am here in Washington, D.C., the whites have come back. They want the cities back, and now they have moved us out of the cities. I'm I, because sometimes it'll be confusing depending on where you live. I'm gonna explain to you what's going on. The reason you see the miscegenation on the TV and the movies and amongst the celebrities, that is because of the small hat propaganda. The small hats always want to put us in front of the European and make it look like we're the ones who want to mix races, and we want to lay up with their children, and take their daughters and be with them sexually and all that stuff. They know that causes the Anglo-Saxons to get angry and to hate us and target us and want to kill us. So the Anglo-Saxons become the police and all this stuff, and they just hate us so much that all they can think about is their daughters being with us and bringing some mulatto children. And it just boils their blood, right? The small hat is the one holding up this racial mixture and this new rainbow order or rainbow disorder of the rainbow mafia and the alphabet letter crew, and throw us at the front of it. And so when the Anglo sees the collapse of the family and the rise of feminism and that what they see as disorder and the destruction of their country, which it is, but they see us at the front of it. That's part of the small hat tactics of using us as a shield to hide their hand in the destruction and takeover of this nation, and of course to bring about their new world order and the Great Reset. And so that's why you see what looks like contradictory things and contradictory attitudes from Urugu, because two different tribes of Urugu are fighting for power, and they're using different methods, and they're putting us in between them. But if we could get out the way and let them go at it, it'd be beneficial to us. So that's why we see the things that we see. That's why on one hand, you see it looks like Euros can't stand us. They hate our guts and don't want to be near us. And then on the other hand, that women want to lay up underneath us. Brother, you got ripped off, said, flooded my city and murdered thousands just to get it back in their grasp. New Orleans. Bush Brown massacre, indeed. And Brother Crow says, Dr. Williams go hard against the hats. Indeed. And to your point, brother, one of the things that we don't understand is when we look back at those wars in Kemet and the Hyksos are the ancestors of the hats. Of the not the Ashkenazi hats, but the Sephardic hats. The Hyksos are their ancestors. That they took what they learned from us out and took it and added it to their culture to come up with their religious ideology and their religious iconography, and then told myths and stories based around that, and formed uh, um, um, that chosen people ideology, and used it for as a way to, in essence, climb the ladder from the basement of European people to the top of the European people pyramid, while at the same time helping to craft the ideology of white supremacy. So that's something that people don't really look at. Well, The hats aren't really looked at as the backbone of that, but they are very much so. And they took a lot of our knowledge and sacred science to do that, and to bamboozle us with religion. Because of course, the whole foundation of the whole Christianity, Islam, is what we call Judaism, which is an amalgamation and a desecration of our African spirituality in ancient Kemet. But that's a whole nother lecture and discussion. But is when I read this part, it's so profound because it is very much in the world today a problem of Negro leaders. And this is so funny because it's not even funny, it's sad, but it's something that Malcolm X talked about. But we see it today where Negro leaders, because of their love, their worship of our enemies, their fear of, they're being compromised by, they're being bought out by our enemies, are literally willing to do anything, including uh, put the whole nation at risk. We see this in Ghana with the their mandate, the Ghana vaccine mandate. I think that I saw in Uganda. Somebody help me out. I think they had some. I think they had something too, like recently, where they just implemented some vaccine mandates. And Brother Russell says, "Peace and blessing from B More. Thank you for your commitment for reminding us of the sacrifices made by our ancestors, who are and were our true leaders." Hey, brother, thank you. No problem. But you know, the reality of the situation is, and I'm gonna see if I can bring this up. These people should know good and well. They know these people. They know how they are. African people on the continent are more likely to be shocked by the things they see Europeans do behind closed doors than we are. We've been around them, so we kind of know. So when the whole, and I used this as an example before, but when the whole shower debate broke out earlier this year, right? Yeah, I don't know if you remember that, with white people, with celebrity whites, not random Joe Blows. Maybe it wasn't random Joe Blows, but celebrity whites were like, "No, I don't take a bath every day." Well, are you crazy? What? Why would I do that? You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is publicly. I mean that's just a sign of the difference between the two people. And then I don't know if y'all remember, maybe that was 2020, but the whole washcloth thing where white people like they don't use washcloths, and I'm like, wait a minute, we the people buying up all the washcloths? Do we make the washcloths? That's a lot of money. Like, how do you manufacture the washcloths? Like, do they manufacture them? Do Arabs manufacture? Chinese? What it? If you're not using washcloths and you got soap, and you say you're not taking a bath every day, but you are taking it some days, what? How are you washing? Right? I mean, just think about that for a minute. For an African on the continent, they would be like, "What? We know about white women and dogs. That's not new to us. It's like been a rumor. Like, now if you see my lectures, you see them talk about it on video. I didn't make it up. I just got it off got it off the internet, put it up there. I didn't pay the girl to say it, right? But for them, they'd be much more shocked. So when those leaders get around those people, they see what they do. They see how they are. They know what they're dealing with. But it's fear and cowardice and worship of enemies. A good book to get is the Confessions of an Economic Hitman. I forgot the Urugu's name that wrote it, but it's an excellent book. Unique One Express says you see it in the commercial. Indeed, they I hope I saved it, but there was a commercial where the woman was talking about she be smelling like wet dog. I didn't make the commercial. She made the commercial. BB Foliator Island. And so again, we're at a time where we're seeing the differences between the people. This would be the perfect time for us to separate. But the leaders are betraying us. And so we can't, because now the small hat is sending the jab over there, and Ghana requires it for you to go over there. Let me see if I if I can bring up that article real quick. And I'm just using this as an example. Let's see. Um yeah, give me a second. I'm gonna try to bring that up. Bring that up on a and that happened what? That was recent. They implemented that maybe a couple of weeks ago. And so that's just an example. Considering the history and knowing what has gone on and knowing about colonialism and having some of the people, I'm sure some of the people that are in leadership in these countries are actually some of the people that fought. And if they're not some of the people that fought, they are the students of some of the people that fought. For example, Robert Mugabe, that just transitioned, he fought against Urugu. Some of the people under him fought against Urugu. Some people in the government fought against Urugu. Brother Crow says Baba Rudy said back in the dark ages of Europe, whites used to wear high heels to step over the feces from animals and humans. Right, right. There's a thing called chamber pots, and I learned about this actually reading European fiction. When I was basically I guess a teenager, maybe even before that, I used to read Conan the Barbarian books, right? And then a lot of the fiction is based on historical stuff, but it talks about how their um they would throw their waste, because they didn't have toilets, running water and stuff. Just throw your stuff out the window or throw it in the back alley or whatever. That's why when you see the European men back in the not the Middle Ages, but what they call it, the Renaissance age, that's why the men were wearing the high heels and the stockings. High heels and stockings is actually a European male fashion. And so when you see them, really what you don't even realize is that when you see them transition that high heels and stockings to women, it's really a form of transgenderism and homosexuality, because originally that was a European male fashion, because the men were worried about stepping into the stuff and they wanted to protect their legs, and they were the ones wearing the frilly outfits and the stockings and the high heels. But then they flipped it over to the women, because why? Because the nature of the European is what? Homosexual. Or as they say now, they pansexual, because they deal with everything, including animals. And that's why when brothers think that they making a come up dealing with a European female, they don't understand that the European female deals with the dog, and so you have no higher place than the dog. You're just a pet for the European female, right? I mean, this is actual fact. This is what it is. But we thinking that we're making some type of progress by being able to deal with Europeans sexually, but in reality, in chattel slavery, you was dealing with Europeans sexually. You just wasn't dealing with them sexually, um, of your own volition necessarily. you were dealing with them sexually at their behest. And in reality, you can make the argument that nothing's changed. Because as a man, if you get with a European female, you're at her mercy. If she says, if she goes to the police and says that you raped her or you hit her, you probably going to, you got a 50-50 chance of dying. Going to jail is a good day on that. And don't get me started. I've done stories on black women who dealt with European males, and you end up underneath the floorboards of the basement. You think you're gonna give them the same attitude, lip service that you give some brothers, and they be like, okay. As soon as you go to sleep, bust you right upside your head, wrap you up in them sheets, wrap you in some plastic, and bury you underneath the floorboards, and put a big giant refrigerator over top of it, and act like they ain't that you went to work yesterday and they ain't seen you since. I mean, this is real. This is stuff that really happens. So this belief amongst those Negroes who are willing to chase Urugu to the ends of the earth that sleeping with Europeans is some type of accomplishment. It is no different than physical enslavement. No different at all. But it looks different because you don't have the knowledge of yourself, and you don't have your history, and you don't understand the process of breaking your mind. I was watching the old Matrix, and they were talking about when they had Morpheus captured and talking about changing of the brain waves, hacking the mind. They've been hacking our mind for a long time. BB48 BB48, man. They've hacked our mind and inserted their programming into our mind, and that's why we act the way we act. So that you have big, strong men wearing dresses because his mind has been hacked, and the original African warrior software that should be there has been deleted, and a program of effeminization has been downloaded into his mind, and now his operating system has been changed, and from the African perspective he's malfunctioning, but from the European perspective he's doing what he's supposed to do. You take the black woman and you hack her mind, and so she starts putting on the blonde weave. And some of my sisters are so confused. They put on the blonde weave and then go get the ridiculous sized butt at the same time. Get 15 tattoos, including on her face. And then have a child out of wedlock and become a lesbian. That software is completely scrambled. The Negro and the N word is a black person whose operating software has been hacked by the small hat. And so they're under the control of the hat. And now they're working on actual physical tools and software to make sure that you can't break out of it by just hearing the word of truth or being re-educated. But that's another discussion that I don't have time to get into tonight. Because, like I said, I do have places to go. But this was so important that I had to get into this. I had to give homage to our dear, beloved, great ancestor, Dr. Chancellor Williams. And like I said, when I was there on that hill with that wind blowing and in that cold, standing at his gravesite and reading from this text, an understanding of our condition, our understanding of what needed to, the timing, what needed to be done to steal a phrase from someone, really came upon me. And I realized the work has to be done. And we can't take a day off. We can't, once something is established, it has to be done. I haven't even, I'm not sure. It would really be up to y'all. I kind of want to do both lectures back to back in January. I mean, when I say back to back, I mean one weekend and the next weekend. Um, because they are together. They are a continuation of each other. It's just that the second one is a dedication to Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, and it features multiple clips of Dr. Khalid. He is, in essence, co producer of that lecture, which is Africa versus Everybody 2, The Hidden Enemies, which I've never done. But I'm going to do that lecture regardless. But it's up to y'all whether or not I do the first one before that. If that's something y'all want to see, that's something y'all willing to, you know, pay for the stream, which I can do one price for both, you know, then I'll do it like that, and it just be, it'd be extra 3 hours out my weekend to do. If not, I can just do part two for Dr. Collins Day. Like I said, that's up to y'all. Y'all can email me, let me know whatever. If I get a certain amount of people when I put it out, I'll do it that way. Then I'll just do one probably the Saturday before, and then one the Monday. And you need one that expresses throughout history, knowing how the Euros have repeatedly treated us and so on. Many of us should know better for falling for their tricks by now. But the difference is, yeah, you're right. Many of us should know, no question, absolutely no question. The difference is we aren't telling our children, and then we see them do what they do, and then we get mad, but we ain't never told them the truth. Like we send them to we send them to. I mean, Malcolm X said it. We send them to the enemy to be educated. I can't remember who said it. Said, well, we send them to Rome, and are surprised that they come back as Romans. We send our daughters to these schools, and they come back with these lesbian, black feminist, LGBTQ ideas, and we looking around wondering what happened. When that's the major part of the education now. We don't tell our children about, I'll tell our sons about all the stuff that we saw growing up with the crack and the guns and the drugs and all this stuff. And we let them listen to any of this ridiculous music that comes out. And then we wonder why he want to be a gangbanger and he locked up. And Brother I. Allen says that Ghislaine Maxwell trial exposed a huge list of those Euro pedophiles, and everyone is quiet about it. Brother, this is the thing. To your point, this is what happened with that. When the Pizzagate thing happened, it blew up all over the internet, right? And then they covered it and tried to like poo-poo it and say it was fake. They learned from that, so they decided that just don't cover it. When this stuff happens, just don't cover it. Just ignore it. WikiLeaks just had a dump a few days ago of a whole boatload of information on everybody. Now they talking about what's name got some type of disease, he about to die. Assange, Julian Assange. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they had no problem killing their own. The European pedophile, the global pedophile trade is so entrenched in the elite levels of European society that that people wouldn't believe it if you showed them pictures. Like it's so entrenched and so a part of their culture that I mean the two things just go hand in hand. Like when Jenny did that Pizzagate lecture and they showed the spirit cooking and all that, that that lets you know right there that stuff is completely insane. And yet we don't, because the way the censorship is going now. And if you saw when I did the COVID presentation from the book, that's a part of it. That's a part of Event 201, which you can still find. You can still find the Event 201 on YouTube. You can look it up as soon as I'm finished. They got the commercial up there. They talk about it. They talk about they ran the simulation for an outbreak and the whole thing. Yeah, the whole thing's there. You go to the World Economic Forum and hear Klaus Schwab talk about the Great Reset. Like, and none of this stuff is even hidden information anymore because they got the people's minds so off balance with all this stuff going on. With you never know which day you're gonna wake up. It's gonna be a new variant. You can't go here. You can't go there. You can't work. If you get the jab, then you get the jab. Then you got to get the other jab. Then you got to get the jab to the jab to the jab. So I know people that got the jab now they mad talking about they ain't gonna get no more jabs. So I'm like, well, you can be. They'll tell you you're not vaccinated and you can get fired again. You in the same boat as if you never took the thing in the first place. Now how you feel? Malcolm X say you're trapped. You're double trapped, right? So that that's a that Maxwell case is something I really need to get into. Um, that's something I need to get into because I haven't been fully engaged in that because I just had my own stuff going on. And brother, I honestly says PG County School sent back home despite those workers being jacked. Right. The whole the whole like 90% of the NFL been jabbed, and they got people missing games, coaches missing games. The coaches and administration and all that level of people, GMs and all that, they were it was mandatory for them to be jabbed, and they several coaches have missed games. In fact, I think they getting triple jabbed, but the people are still testing positive. But again, I talked about that, how the process works with the testing and all. I talked about all that. It's all in the book. Um, Truth About COVID book, highly recommended. I'm trying to get my hands on the real Anthony Fauci and also When China Sneezes. Those are two books I'm trying to get my hands on. But probably won't talk about those books here because I think I have at least one what they call it medical misinformation strike. They give me strikes with all types of stuff. They give me strikes on stuff I didn't even know there was something against it in writing. I know in spirit. I know what they don't like, but you know what I mean. Unique One Express says the reason we fall behind is because we're not on code and there's no organization, which makes us gullible to everybody to go in and do whatever. Yeah, but I posted today from the destruction of black civilization. To your point, let me find this quickly. I posted on Instagram this quote from the book, and then I'll get out of here. And it's page 318. Says unity amongst the blacks has been prevented for so many centuries that the various mechanisms to keep blacks disorganized have been perfected in the Western system of racial control. The white man is keenly aware of the tremendous power of any well organized groups. And then before that, page 317, no one seems to have noticed the signals from the white world, signals which tell how tremendously important the whites regard any movement towards unity among the blacks. Nothing racial seems to upset them more. Destruction of Black Civilization, page 317. So that's why there's no organization system. It's not an accident, it's part of the plan. They understand that a unified, organized black people uh, basically flip over the table and end the game. Everybody knows it except us. That's why everybody works so hard to keep it from happening. That's why you have so many gender war topics on YouTube. Seems like that's the only thing being talked about. Black people arguing with each other. It's not even constructive debate. Indeed, brother, you got ripped off Memorandum 46. In fact, I think I'm gonna do Memorandum 46 again for my birthday and tape it. So, because I don't think it got taped the last time. Let's see. And Brother I. Allen said Stephen A. Smith got the virus after getting jabbed and talking smack about Kyrie Irving. Oh, I didn't know that, but yeah, I mean it serves him. I barely even I don't even listen to him, and I know he just seemed like he been talking about Kyrie Irving like a dog, even though uh what's the quarterback? Even though he, basically did well, no, the quarterback lied. He said he was jabbed or whatever, and he wasn't. And whatever. Then he got it. Let's see. The governor got the jab and tested positive. The governor brother Brother Russell said the governor of Maryland got the jab and tested positive. The mayor of Baltimore City and the Baltimore County executive all tested positive and had the jab. Well, there you go. And Unique One Express says, after all that our freedom fighters fought for on the continent, now the Chinese are there taking over. It's cringy. Right, Aaron Rodgers, right. Yeah, it makes you want to throw up. It's really disgusting. But brothers and sisters, I do have to go. I very much enjoyed this. I think I kind of needed it. I think it's kind of cathartic. I needed to apologize for the people because I felt like I kind of dropped the ball in a way. And the ancestral work remains to be done. And those who have been called and have heeded the call need to continue to do that. And since I'm one of the ones who have heeded the call, like I said, being there at the gravesite of Baba, you know, was a reminder, you know. So I'm continuing to do the work. I thank you all for your support. I thank you all for listening to this message. I thank you all for coming out to the events, for streaming the events, for letting people know about the YouTube channel and on the Wake Up Radio and all that. As y'all know, I face great opposition, shadow banning on all my social media. That they do what they can without making it so obvious that they don't like me. And it is what it is. But realistically, I really enjoy the interaction, whether it's uh, through this medium or in person. It really fulfills my spirit to see black people who are still sane and striving to move in an African direction. So I greatly appreciate that. And brother, you got ripped off says Madasi for the video, brother. Those who know your current battle got your back. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you so much. So again, y'all can follow me on Instagram at dc.radical1, on Twitter at DC_radical_ONE, at OTWTube at DC Radical One. You can donate via the Cash App at $ DC Radical One, and you can reach me at on my what do you call email. Had a brain fart for a minute at dc.radical_one at protonmail.com. And of course, this is the YouTube page, which is surprisingly still up at capital D small c radical one. With that, I say a BB for Hodier and straight black pride.